All right, our United Nations meeting in progress on healing the soul line. Yeah, so basically the reason I find this one quite piecey is because, you know, when we think of soul retrieval, healing the soul line, all of that sort of thing, we tend to think of past lives. And the thing is that our soul has been through an enormous journey to get here, right? And so a past life is you know, gonna, if you imagine, I call it the silver thread, but you know, people call it the soul line, all sorts of things, but I call it the silver thread because the way I see it when I'm working is like a, you know, a gossamer silver thread that just you know, has a tail that's kind of endless. And so your past lives, everything leaves an imprint on this tail, right? But of course it's not that simple, because the quantum field is multi-dimensional, it's multi-realm, there's so many layers to it that it's not just a thread that goes back through all our human past lives. So you know, I've told some of you about an experience that I had where you know, I have spiritual experiences in really bizarre places. So, you know, it's not usually when I'm in a deep meditation or, oh, okay, Nesta, you're finding that distracting. Is anyone, okay.
Because I can't stop looking at everybody else and what they're drinking tea and.
Okay, we'll go back to,
sorry, unless you've all agreed otherwise, I don't mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to change.
I like it.
You like it?
Bye.
And we don't want people being distracted, so I'm going to change to I'm going to change to speaker. Okay, how's that?
Either.
Okay, so if you want, you can just pin me, and that way you're just going to see me. Yeah. All right, so the only thing with that is I don't see everyone, so just unmute yourselves or put into chat if you've got a question as we're going. Okay, so yeah,
you can choose your interview, everyone individually.
I'm just going to mute you all as well. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. So I've just muted you all, and just unmute yourselves if you want at any time. And so, yeah, so the experience, you know, when I have experiences, they're often in really random places. I might be in the shower, I could be just, you know, going for a walk. And when I had this particular one, I was sitting outside a coffee shop waiting for a friend to get a coffee. And it was early morning. And I literally, one minute I was sitting there, and the next I was just zapped out of my body, and I was held with my twin, just taken me out, and we were encased in this kind of golden light, this golden egg around us, and taken out into what I would call the spirit realms. And I was, you know, I was going through some stuff at the time, and I was just told, you know, like, everything is fine. Everything is totally fine. You don't need to worry. Look at this. And he swept his arms around, and there was just this incredible vision of souls, and it was like a symphony of color. And so I saw just billions of souls, all just ebbing and flowing in these amazing colors, and I could see all the vibrations, so all the individual vibrations of souls, and I could see every soul playing out a multi-dimensional aspect of soul. So everything was playing out simultaneously. So there was no past, present, future. I could experience it in this completely new way that I had never understood before. And I could see the beauty of it all from that realm, right? And it was just so illuminating for me. I could see that for them, they don't look, you know, from that space, from that realm, and we all are in that realm as well. You know, aspects of us are in that realm, and aspects are here, and aspects or fragments are all over the show, playing out all these multi-dimensional realities simultaneously. But from that particular place, which is sort of like one of the higher dimensions, everything that's playing out is just beautiful. And so when we're stuck in suffering and grief and all of these very dense emotions, they don't see it like that. They are just there with this deep, loving compassion, observing the growth, right? And we, with our ego self keeps us stuck within the framework of the physical, and our ego self keeps us stuck in duality, right? And so we have to kind of transcend the ego in order to understand this multi-dimensional aspect of our soul. Am I making sense? Yeah. So just, you know, just jump in if something's really confusing, because, you know, I'm trying to explain something really, just, you know, so big. If you imagine here is just so little, and then once you get into that quantum, it's just endless. You know, it's endless possibilities of what exists, and there's no right and wrong, right? So, you know, if someone sees fluffy unicorns, then that's their reality. If they see, you know, dragons and this, then that's their reality. If they only believe in God and when you die you go to heaven or hell, that's their reality. And you can only work with the reality that you've created at this point in time. But the more you start to expand, the more you break that glass ceiling, you realize that anything is possible, right? And when you realize anything is possible, then healing gets a whole lot easier. And the reason we don't heal is because we don't think it's possible. We think that we have to do something really complicated. We think that we have to go into this specific thing, moment or lifetime, and we think that we have to do this process, or someone else has to do a regression, or all of these things, because again, you know, that's just power outside. We are our own medbeds. We are our own healers, and we are capable of absolutely anything. Once we understand that, we actually start manifesting that, right? And that's a really, really powerful place to be when we realize that. So there are things that can help, and you know, it can help to go into Akashic records. And it's certainly really interesting to go into Akashic records, because, you know, when I've had a regression with Nesta, for example, you know, it was amazing because I was a feline, and it was hilarious. And I could not stop laughing when I saw that I had a tail. Like, it was the most hilarious moment I've ever had. And I couldn't believe that I was a cat, right? I was like this really advanced, super traveling cat on a spaceship. And and it's not the first time by any stretch that I've, had these visions of being a feline. And so, we really are only limited by, just let someone in. Looks like someone bumped out. We're only limited by our imagination. And our imagination is actually reality, right? And everything that we get stuck in here is our ego blocking our access to reality. So if we think we can't heal ourselves, that's just our ego blocking us and blocking our access to that quantum field. We have the complete ability to manage pretty much anything once we learn how to work in, these other dimensions and realms. And the quantum is really just a name for like everything else, everything that's not this. So everything that you access through the mind is the quantum. So so really what we want to do is we want to look at, the way we're programmed, the way the soul line takes information in, ascension markers, and how to raise our vibration. And we've covered some of the quantum field on Friday, and most of you were there for that. So the other thing that that we get stuck with is, people talk about a lot, is the generational line of pain or trauma. And so the way that comes through for me is, if you imagine when you're coming down into a body, you've got your soul line, and there's also a generational line, right? And it's like just before, somewhere before in the canal, before it reaches the body, there's this merging of these two lines. This is just how I see it, and you just take what resonates. But I get this merging, and because I have to see things in a way that makes sense to me. Obviously it's more complicated than this, but I get this kind of merging like this of the soul and the generational line as it comes into the body. And when you birth, you've got a merging of two lines, and so you come in, and the way it converges is like DNA, right? So that's how your DNA is coded. It's coded with your soul line and your generational line, and it's in this 12-strand spiral. And so you've got this DNA that comes through, and that actual image for me is the merging of these two lines. And so it comes through like this, and that's also the car body, the energy system. Everything is intertwined in this DNA. So the DNA is so remarkable, and it's all held energetically within this physical framework. And so then we develop new aspects which we add to that in our formative years of 0 to 7. We tend to put all of that coding into the DNA, so we deepen it, and then we layer throughout our lifetime.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when does the soul line choose the car body? Is it like before we're conceived? Is it when the baby's in the womb, or is it literally at birth?
I believe it's before we're conceived.
Wow.
So the way it makes most sense to me is if you imagine your soul as just you've got a very high dimensional soul, you know, and it's in that realm that where I had that experience. That was like the home of the souls. And then that soul has aspects of its self playing out in all of it's playing out this symphony, right? And thousands of different realms and dimensions. And they're all having these experiences that they're sending information back to the higher dimensional soul. And that higher dimensional soul is using all that information to, you know, do the cycle like a wave back sort of to source, I guess. But it's, you know, it's really gone on this journey because it wants experiences. And it, you know, in the beginning, it only knows this expansive unconditional love. But as it starts to experience all these other things, it develops something else, right? It develops a breadth of compassion and understanding and empathy that we can't even really imagine within this physical realm. But for me, each time we finish, each time, you know, so our soul finishes this lifetime, leaves the body, and is then taken to this place where it understands, you know, it has this amazing, immense comprehension of everything that it has learned and everything that it hasn't learned. And it will want to experience something that it felt that it didn't experience that time round, right? And so there is a big converging. It's like, you know, the biggest computer machine that you could ever imagine, except that it's for, you know, not just this planet, it's for every planet, every soul that exists. And this computer system, and, you know, imagine that it has this energetic pull towards a lifetime, wherever that may be on whatever planet, where it's going to have an experience, a new experience that it hasn't had. And so that converging of energies will magnetically draw it towards a new body or a new form or whatever it decides to take.
Is that the generational attachment?
Well, that for me is the soul line. And then as it's, you know, as it's moving towards that, it will gather the generational information, because that is going to give it the coding that will allow it to have the experiences it's chosen to come and have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I always felt I was born in the wrong family. It's like, it didn't make any sense to me. And my knowing was far beyond the family line I was born into.
How many other people feel that?
To me.
Yeah. How many other people feel that? Yeah.
I felt like I was an orphan. I was like, oh, this is weird. I mean, a great family, but not people. Felt like I was from another place.
Yeah.
I've always said to my parents that I'm always like, I must be adopted. I must be adopted.
Yeah. And I was the same, right? So for me,
that's the experience, is it? That's that the soul wants.
That's the experience the soul wants. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's the way I experience it. And it can take a long time to come into acceptance of that knowledge, especially if you're having a lot of pain and suffering. And so, yeah, you know, that feeling of being placed into a family that you don't belong to is really common for specific what do I want to call them? So I had this vision, right, about 5 or 6 years ago, I can't remember, but I had this vision that the world was a wasteland, and there were just these pods like scattered around this wasteland. And just at various times, one of the pods would just hiss and open, and someone would stand up out of the pod. Okay, and I saw pods starting to open, but they were all opening at different times, and I couldn't work out what I was looking at, but it was such a real vision. It was a real, like, you know, here it is, this is what's going on. And it took quite a while because you know, I wasn't, well, I mean, you know, I was kind of working it out, but really what was going on was there were particular people with power that had been closed down for, thank you, for centuries, millennia, that had been, thank you, particularly going back to, I want to say, yeah, definitely, Lemuria, Atlantis, and the fall of Egypt. Whew. And they were all in these pods, and they had either had big attachments or gifts locked down, right? So through the alchemy of the magic that was known at the time. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, it's strong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Got shivers all over my body.
Yeah, that's, I'm just
going hot and cold and heads going.
Yeah, huge feedback on this. So so they were a threat to the rise of humanity, right? So they were the ones that would allow humanity to rise. They were the wisdom keepers. They were the ones that held the keys to the ascension of the planet. And because we were taken over, right, we were taken over a very long time ago. We were reprogrammed into we had a slave gene programmed into us, pretty much, where which kept us, you know, kept our power down, so that we couldn't access these realms, so that we couldn't understand our true power, because if we did, then we would understand we were not slaves, we were free, and we would understand immediately that the planet didn't need to be like this. The planet could ascend and become immensely involved and highly connected with all our star families, which is what they're waiting for. Oh, okay. So these pods were opening, and people were sitting up, and it was like they had been cryogenically frozen, and all of a sudden they were waking up, right? So their activation, or their ascension markers, had been activated. And our ascension markers are activated through a whole host of different reasons. You know, we might get really sick, we might have someone very special or advanced die, and that activates something in us. We might have a certain person come into our life, a twin flame or someone. You know, there's so many different ways that our ascension markers get activated. But you know, when you look back and you've had that sign, that sign, that sign, and you were just like ignoring everything, and so then they came along and went, you know, and you were like, holy shit, and then you look back and you're like, bang, 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 you know, and suddenly it's like the dominoes are actually falling in retrospect. And you see everything playing out, and you see, you know, how clear it actually was all the time, but you just didn't, you know, you just weren't ready to listen at the time. But you know, that's what I talk about, where you will be wrenched back onto the track if you get too off track. And then once you actually make the commitment, because you know everyone in here is pretty powerful, and you're all from those pods, right? And once you make that commitment to serve, because this is the only way we can live, we can only live in service, right? There's no other option. There's just no other option. If you're not living in service, you're not ever going to be happy, okay? And in living in service, like I said, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to actually like spend your life doing voluntary work. Living in service is simply living your most conscious self for humanity. So whatever you're doing it in service to other. And even if that means, you know, when someone that you are there for people in a certain way, but everyone's gifts present differently. And yes, Emma, if you feel connected to certain time periods, you've almost certainly got past lives there. Now, there's so many aspects to it, but these powerful people, right, were shut down. I've found all kinds of, you know, entities stuck to people that have literally just been there for you know, hundreds of years, thousands of years, and that when they start to come off, then you start to have all these aha moments, synchronicities, all sorts of stuff starts happening, and you start the ascension process. And the ascension process is when you move from this vibration and you suddenly go and you move up into another massively higher vibration. And it is super uncomfortable. You can go through loads of different, you know, experiences, and we talked about this in the channeling workshop, but you know, you can be eating miles, or you can be eating absolutely nothing. You can be feeling really out of it in your head. You can have weight gain, weight loss, like you can feel really, really disconnected from people. You'll find that people start falling away in your life. You know, you can lose lots of things around you, material things. You start to feel really disconnected from all the things that you used to love. Like all kinds of stuff goes on during the ascension process. And it can go on for a long time, or it can, you know, you can have short ones, long ones. I've been through a few, and the first one was about sort of quite long, you know, 6 months to a year. And you just find you could be talking to people that you've talked to really easily for years, and then just be thinking, what the hell are they saying? Like, I don't understand anything they're saying. I've got no interest or connection whatsoever to any of that. I almost can't even bear to be around them. All this sort of stuff is going on, and the only way through it is to surrender, basically, and really get involved in your sacred practice. Because if you don't have some sacred daily ritual, then you're going to find that ascension process really discombobulating and really uncomfortable. And especially if anyone else is going through it as well. But when you understand what it is, well, that makes a huge difference, right? Because when you understand what's happening, then you are not only able to process it differently and really nourish yourself, but you're able to recognize it in other people, because there are masses of ascensions going on at the moment, and they are happening all over the show, and they're happening to all the way showers and and people that have come here, been coming here over and over to try and ascend the planet, but have, you know, had maybe been trapped in this karmic cycle, because in the time of magic, when it was fully understood, they were completely closed off through one form or another. But the throat is probably the most common form of closing someone off, and the crown chakra. They would be the two that I most commonly find. And so what they often do is they will activate your lower chakras, activate your fears, your primal needs, your you know, your lots of sexual stuff. So either sexual problems, or or, you know, really pushing you towards lots of experimental sexual stuff, and, you know, to take you away from sacred connection, right? So yeah, there's lots of different ways that they will activate your lower chakras, but the two most common ones that they close are the throat and the crown, because if they, you know, if they cut out your tongue, you can't speak, can you? So, and that's speaking your truth. And so then, instead of, you know, you might sort of find that, yes, it could explain a constant sore throat lately. Yeah. And who's that, Charlotte? Yeah, definitely Charlotte, with you. And also light language. When your light language comes, you're using vocal cords that you've never used before, and your mouth is making constrictions and activating areas that have never been used in this lifetime. And so the physical aspect of that is, you know, a lot of extreme discomfort and sore throats, and, you know, because you're speaking light now, and the light is helping to activate the throat chakra, which has not been able to speak its full truth throughout this lifetime, right? Oh, any questions? No.
It's just very validating for me. So thank you. It's exactly where I've been at for a while.
Right.
I sort of came to the conclusions you've said, but it's just great to hear someone else validate what I've sort of figured out, and just help me get how to work with it.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. That's great. Okay. So, you know, we have a lot of off-planet lives. We have lives, you know, in other dimensions, like we have non-form lives, and there are other dimensions playing out on Earth, you know, and so we're in the, like, right in the eye of the storm here. Not even the eye of the storm, we're in the storm of massive dimensional change on the planet. And so there's people that just don't want to change, right? There's people that don't want to ascend. There's people that are completely stuck in the material world. They just can't think about anything except their boat, their house, how much money they've got in the bank, and making sure they've got enough wine on a Friday night. And that's okay, because, you know, they're doing their journey, but you're gonna just start resonating less and less with that, in particular with the material world. Like, you're just gonna find that, like, it just starts seeming really uncouth and unattractive to you to see people talking in this way, and you will not have any respect for wealth. Like, that doesn't mean that a wealthy person is not ascended. What I'm saying is, you won't respect the wealth. You'll respect the person, but not the wealth, right? So people that, you know, like when we grow up, we're just really taught to revere wealth and money and material things. And So, you know, there's often something quite alluring about really powerful people, because we see power as held within the realms of wealth, right? And so when you start to ascend, you lose all respect for that. And they feel it, like it's really uncomfortable for them as well. Like if you're standing next to someone who's very powerful and they're used to having people look at them a certain way, and you see them for what they are, you see them for all their postulating and confidence that is purely based on material, and you have no respect for that, they feel incredibly uncomfortable around you, and they might find all these ways to kind of either increase, you know, their need for validation, or put you down. Like there might be sort of two ways that they can go, but or else they might just try and move away from you because they're so uncomfortable that you're seeing their energy body and not their material projection. So lots of really interesting things start to happen when you're ascending. But just as in, you know, when we have pivot moments in this lifetime, we have pivot moments on our soul line as well, right? And so we really, you know, we do have woundings on our soul line, because for these people from the pods, and actually most, you know, in fact, I think everyone here, I would say, is from a pod. Because I know I say pods, but you know, it's a metaphor, obviously. But yeah, I'm just, yeah, like really everyone. You know, these pods, or these powerful people, these people who are here to shift the state of consciousness on the planet, they are, you know, being activated, if you like, but that doesn't mean, because you say this happened, I don't know, 20,000 years ago, and then over that time you've been caught in this karmic cycle because the Earth's vibration has been too low to ascend. The Earth is now at a time that it hasn't been at for over 26,000 years, you know, because we're moving into another great age. And so this is, you know, terribly important work that we're doing at this particular time, whereas before we've just been, you know, we've just been caught in this karmic cycle of just, you know, working our way through that cycle and you know, waiting for this moment of, you know, this in-between moment between two great ages. And so if you think about, you know, how the Earth has been for thousands of years, it's been very dense, very low vibrational, very hard for most people. Most people would have had a hard life after hard life. And so there's the soul line layering from the earth plane, right, on this, you know, on the soul line, just as you have the layering like we did in the healing workshop yesterday. You've got the layering in this lifetime, you've got this formative years 0 to 7, and then you've got the layering that just keep bringing you back to the anchor and reinforcing the anchor. Well, you've got that on the soul line going all the way back, you know. And so there's a lot of the blocks that have been there can feel immense to clear. So, you know, I've been trying to sort of work out the best way to do a clearing. And, you know, I think I'm going to sort of go, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to channel it, because there's, you know, there's lots of different ways to do this, and it's a really hard one because, you know, we've got a lot to clear. But what I want you to understand is most clearing can be done in this lifetime, okay? most of it, because it's not past, there's no past, present, future. It's simultaneously playing out in different realms. So it's like it's like this ebb and flow of the soul's breath that is playing out all these fragments, which is really hard to grasp. I could never have grasped it before I had that experience, but now it's really obvious to me. And so when we heal something in this lifetime, we can ask for the vibration to heal throughout the soul line. So yeah, Alana's just asked, do you think children coming into the world are already ascended or have surpassed most of the 3D stuff? Really good question. Oh my gosh, how to answer that? Yes. So I am starting to see New Earth children. And so the children that have been coming in for about the last decade are definitely different. And they are coming in with some different elements, okay? But there's a whole converging of things that are happening around that. So we now have access to the quantum in a way that we haven't for a long time. We now have access to all this 5D energy. So they're able to ride in and, and feel things really differently. Lots of children, like my 11-year-old is, speaking light language. Lots of children are speaking light language. So they're accessing those aspects of their DNA way faster. We've got, if you think about the last 100 years, we've got this massive influx of souls, okay? They're riding in new souls into Earth. They've been playing out lots of stuff in other places, but they're riding in to anchor the consciousness, right? They're literally coming in to help us because we've been so stuck and we missed the boat on the last great age. We went into the massive fall of, what should have been the divine masculine. It wasn't. It was a corruption of the divine masculine. Okay. So it was, moving into the realm of power, corruption, greed, control, and so it was all heavily corrupted. And so they are pouring in massive increase in population of new souls pouring in literally to help anchor, help us, because we are so anchored in darkness. And so, there's a lot of these new earth souls, and I've treated people in their 40s as well, who are these new earth souls. So, but they've only had like 1 or 2 lifetimes here. So they struggle so much. They often come into these families of darkness, and they really struggle because they can't access anger. And anger is a foreign emotion to them. They've never grown up in planets with, they've grown up in really highly evolved places. And so they come here, they don't understand why we cause suffering. They don't understand anger. And they carry all this immense weight of crushing pain, that from the collective, that that they don't understand, because they don't realize they're just very new bodies on this planet, and they're literally just here to anchor that gentle consciousness into the planet. Whew. So can our soul blocks be passed on to our children via womb? Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. So that's kind of like, that's similar to the generational line of pain, right? Where there's a convergence into the DNA as it comes through. And so, yes, and you see this a lot in Russians. Like, I went through a phase of having loads and loads of Russians. lots and lots of Russian women, and they're the most remarkable people. And they have, you know, because Russia went through more than almost any other country in World War II, and they actually have a soul pain of starvation in them, right? So although they haven't been in the war, they carry this, you know, this fear of starvation. They carry a soul block around it, from everything that went on in their previous generations. And it's a very deep wounding, because, you know, what happened and the way that they, you know, millions of them were starved to death by having their cities surrounded was, you know, really, really traumatizing. And it has carried through that generational line. So yeah, we definitely can pass soul blocks, but we can't pass an entity attachment, for example, but we can pass soul blocks onto our children. But we can also clear them. And most of our clearing, right, most of our clearing is done in this lifetime. It's only occasionally that we just, you know, really need to clear something from past lifetimes. It's only real pivot moments. So, you know, if you've been stuck in these Lemurian, Atlantean, fall of Egypt times, then yeah, you know, you might need to go back and do some work in them. But the work is still done in the present, right? So how it will manifest is, say if you've got a problem speaking your truth, or you've got a problem where you're attracting the same, you know, relationship or whatever, it's only going to change through you doing something in this lifetime. Yeah, it's exactly like an imprint. Your soul is holding the imprints, Donna. Yeah. And yes, and that does explain about fears, and you don't know how they came about. And I've definitely got experience with that. But yeah, so most of the work is going to be done in the present. And that is like the healing workshop last night, right? It's doing something differently. So if you're finding yourself in the same situation over and over again, it's because you're allowing the same situation to come into your life over and over again. Okay. And there has to be this kind of surrender and then conscious decision to do something differently. So just having a look at this. Yeah, so we will get this reflected over and over, because we're picking a lifetime to re-trigger ourselves, right? So we are going to choose to come into a lifetime that re-triggers a soul wound, so that we are forced to look at it in the conscious and do the healing work, right? And the only way we can do that is by walking directly into our greatest fear. So if your greatest fear is to be alone, then you have to, your greatest challenge in this lifetime is to come to terms completely with being alone, to surrender all your love and soul purpose into being alone. Because it's only when that happens that the vacuum is truly created for someone to come into it, which I know is like a complete irony. It's like an oxymoron that's really hard to come to terms with. And so, you know, it's really hard. Like I had to, you know, I had attachment issues with my children. I had to actually reach the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to live in service. I'm offering myself in service for the rest of my life. I will live in service. you know, when I was first saying that, it was like, you know, just don't let anything happen to my children, right? So I was putting conditions on my service. And no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, you can't say, I'll do this. It's not like, you know, the material world, like I'll, you know, scratch your back and you scratch mine. The quantum field doesn't work like that, because as soon as you're placing a condition on something, you're creating tension in the gossamer cosmic web, right? And when you've got tension, you're like this, and you are not in flow. So if you are putting conditions on your service, you're not in flow, right? And so I had to reach the point where I would say, you know, fine, you know, and I resisted for so long. And then it was finally like, eventually I just gave up. Like, that's how, you know, I actually got to the point where I gave up. And I was like, fine, you know, what, like, I remember just lying on the floor, sobbing and just saying, fine, I'll live in service with no conditions. Even if you take my life away, even if you take my relationship, even if you take my kids, I will still live in service. And that was hugely emotional for me. That brought up so much stuff around, you know, losing children, past life stuff. It was like everything came pouring out, and it was so huge that I just couldn't believe it. Like, saying those words was just so traumatizing, but at the same time such a release, because in the saying of those words, I finally let go of those last little cords that I was holding on to. Does that make sense? I had to be prepared to lose everything. And, you know, that's quite biblical. You know, yeah, you know, that is sensitive, Lydia. It's like, you know, very, very, you know, you're reaching into the deepest part of your heart when you're saying something like that, and really, really ripping it out in a way. But in the freeing of that, something else happens. You know, I freed my children, because they're not actually mine. They're sentient beings that have come here on their own silver threads to have an experience. They're very old, wise, sentient beings. They're not actually mine. So if their contract is to experience, leave consciousness, and then leave the planet, I cannot stand in the way of their experience here, right? And I can only come here for my own experience, and my own experience is separate from my partner's or my children's. And I have to keep reminding myself of that. I have to realize that we are all here as our own sentient being to have an experience. And death is not the end. Death is just a return of that fragment home for a while. So, you know, these are really big, big lessons. They're huge. And they are, you know, all about surrender, very Buddhist teachings. And yeah, attachment, you know, the things we are attached to. So maybe if you've got pen and paper, that would actually be a good little thing to do. So I'll give you a minute just to grab some pen and paper if you don't have any. Ooh, big stuff. Alrighty. So just have a think back over your life and maybe draw a line to represent your life. And maybe just think about your attachments over your lifetime. So think, and so, you know, start at the beginning and work your way through and just think about the attachments that you have had. You know, were you attached to one parent over another? Were you attached to certain friends at school? Were you attached to certain relationships? Were you attached to an idea or a concept or a fairy tale? What picture did you have in your head of how your life was going to look? Were you attached to a body image? And when you've done with your attachments, I want you to write your fears, what your fears have been over your lifetime. Yeah, there you go, Joe. Have you had a fear of being alone? A fear of being abandoned? A fear of not being loved? A fear of being hurt? Fears of the dark? Have you got a fear of being big or powerful? Mm. Have you got a fear of being visible being really seen. Because these are all the things that hold us back from showing our authentic self. And then we start putting all the masks on for different people, taking them on and off, just like makeup or clothes. Have you got a fear of being vulnerable? Fear of being wrong? That's probably one of mine's too, Suze. Power and betrayal, fear of being betrayed. And then I want you to think about ways that you judge people. And go back in time. You might not do it in the same way anymore, but think about the programs. What we're getting into here is the programming, right? The way you've been programmed. So how have you judged people in the past or present? Because that's really just another reflection of your fears. What are things that you've said or thought about people that you're not proud of? Okay, so, just have a look at that list, like, because again, this is dark to light, right? We can't heal our soul line unless we go dark to light. We can't even access truly into our Akashic unless we go dark to light. Disappointment, that's a massive one, yeah. Being disappointed or let down. Yeah. And then finding ways to validate your anchors, right? So how do you find those ways that validate your anchors? Your anchors being those deep moments of programming your self-beliefs. Do you, pick relationships that trigger your anchors? Or do you argue in a way that triggers your anchors? Do you keep yourself small? Do you put yourself down? And just look back over your life at how your anchors have been validated. because that's what they feel like, right? They feel like anchors. You know, these parts of our soul line that feel very deep and heavy, and that's why they feel so hard to get out of. But we've got to look at all those dark sides of ourselves, and we've got to honor them and really own them. All the stuff that we've done that we're not proud of. And just, you know, really bring those right into the foreground. Because the more we bring them into the foreground, the less heavy they feel, right? The anchor starts to actually, you know, lighten up. And then we're going to do a wee exercise around this. And so, you know, with regards to these pivotal moments, like the way it's shown to me is, you know, we might go to a time or an age or whatever and have this moment, right? And it'll be like, what happened around this age? And in that moment, you know, like I said, it can be something really traumatic, or it can be a moment in time where, you know, you realize something like, this is the way it is. This is what I'm worth. And in that moment, it's like a piece of you freezes, and then you come out of that body and you carry on walking, but there's a piece of you frozen in that time. And so it's almost like, you know, I guess this is what soul retrieval is. We're just going back, collecting these pieces, right? Bringing them back in, integrating them, going back, collecting another piece, integrating it, and trying to bring you back as much as possible into wholeness. Right, awesome.
Do you mind if we have a loo break before exercise?
Yeah, totally. Let's take 5 minutes, because we've talked about really big stuff here, and you know, it's got to land, and then I'm just going to channel an exercise, I think, and see what comes through, see what I'm given. Okay, take 5, guys. I think it's kind of, well, we'll have one or we'll have 2 videos. I'm not sure, but we'll work it out.
It hasn't come up, like usually when you press recording in progress, it comes up with a little box saying this meeting's being recorded. It hasn't come up with that this time. So I think
mine's showing it's recording.
Awesome. Okay, sweet. Perfect. All right. So, well, what have we got? We've got just over half an hour. Okay, so I just talk quickly about the Ascension Markers, because it's like you come into the world with a blueprint, right? And there's many paths that you can take to fulfill the blueprint. So the paths that you take are your free will, but the blueprint has to be fulfilled. And I feel that I don't know this, but I feel that the only time the blueprint is not fulfilled is if you are if it's suicide, and sometimes suicide is the blueprint, right? Because of the impact that it needed to have for something to change. But sometimes it's not. And certain types of addiction. So those things can interfere with the blueprint. But in general, you know, even addiction is often part of the blueprint, because when you come out of it, you know, it becomes like, what you become when you come out of it is something so different to what you would have ever become before it. So most of the time, like, it's rare that we don't actually fulfill our blueprint. Having said that, I do believe that sometimes there's a split blueprint, and you might fulfill that one and go further, or you might fulfill that one and sort of taper off. So you know, all these paths that kind of converge, you will eventually get dragged back onto the blueprint path. That's just sort of the way I feel it is. Other people might have a different view on that. Okay, so the ascension markers, right? They're like activation moments in your lifetime. Most of you will have a memory of certain moments in your life when you had either a spiritual experience, or you had an awakening of some sort, or you had you know, like, all those signs suddenly made sense. You know, one person suddenly kicked something off. Those are like an ascension marker being activated. And in those moments, it's like something unfolds, or you know, a flower blooms or whatever, and suddenly you have access to new quantum information, right? So suddenly you're able to take in a whole lot more than you could, say, even a few months ago. Does that make sense? Have lots of you had that experience? Yeah, great. So these moments are like really, you know, huge moments. And when you get those activations, that can move other activations as well. But then you might sort of have a period of plateau, and then another activation marker goes off. But you might go through a really long period in life with nothing, and then you might have bang, bang, bang. It doesn't really matter, but these markers are set into your soul line. So particularly, you know, if you get off track or anything, there'll be a big activation at some point for, you know, to sort of move you back in line. And I want to do a light language activation around those ascension markers as well. So okay, I think what we're going to do, so what have we done? We've done, there's judgments and attachments. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to channel something through. So I'm going to get you all to close down, find a spot, and just, we're going to go inward. Okay, I just want you to remember that list that you've just written out, dark to light. And I just want you to think the words dark to light, dark to light, dark to light, bringing your shadow side right round in front of you, not hiding it anymore. You're owning everything that exists within you, no matter how dark. Okay, so let's just go inward, soften your breathing. Relax the stomach muscles, let go. Start releasing. And think the words, I own my darkness. Think those words over and over. I own my darkness. Mohlana Haleshlamai, Kalina Klushwai. Alamacholina Haidala Shohan Tulishlai. I still Mahlai to Kurashlamai. Alahra, 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 Alahra. Undoraya Lina Chukurena, Yeshua. Aluma Hayna Kulitulanai. Alakaya Lamahish. Alahim, Alahim, Alahim. And I want you to imagine coming back to Atlantis, Lemuria, the fall of Egypt. I want you to imagine a time of magic, a time of infinite possibilities, a time when we were inhabited with star people. I want you to imagine a time of happiness and peace. Integration between planets. A time of existence when we were service to other, not service to self. Imagine how it felt to understand and know the quantum field and to easily manage your health and your physical dimensions, as well as your energetic fields. It was a time of great knowing and great wisdom, and you all held the keys. Anachailna Pashakhail Marachi, Alum Kolaya Lakala Machli, Oloshline a Klishabra, Olum Pola Hai to Kolashnai, Oloshin Malai Shiklai, Alachrun, Alachrun, Alachrun. Machi to Krashnai, La Pole to Kulini, Mapole to Kulini, Mapole to Kulini, Aharat Kuduturin, Alihish, 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 Onura Shanahaila, Kainai Tolana Kai, Alasha, 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 Alasha. Imagine you spoke many star languages. And you conversed with many different species. And you could read energy easily. And you could manipulate energy, but always for the greater good. Fine-tuning and tweaking to keep people healthy and stable on the earth plane. These secrets and this wisdom, this magic was known by all. And because you all held the keys, there was no jealousy. There was no corruption. There was no need to compete. It simply was. Feel your expanded energy field. And although you are physical, you are operating from the quantum. fully accessing your multi-dimensional self. Your higher dimensional self. And conversing in great compassion and acceptance of all those around you. This is how the earth was. And one day you began to see the whispers of mistrust being sowed. In great concern, you spoke to others. And you could see a change coming over the planet that had once been so perfect. This multiplied quickly, and a darkness began to fall. You, along with some others, were able to close certain portals and stargates to ensure that this corruption did not leave the planet and infiltrate other planets. But in doing so, you were trapped here. You made a promise to each other to continue to return and incarnate as many times as was required until the next great age would give you an opportunity to harness those purification energies once more. You vowed to find each other over and over. Thousands of you sacrificed yourself to help the planet. Malahin Rashayla Mahi, Ondolahila Bahindarush, Ochrai Shalanaya Kwanai, Alahim, 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 Malahin Kulai Tulawa, Ikulai Shulanakai, Oso Konakoya Takaina Waya, Uroshai, Uroshai, Uroshai. Unohron dakai, tarash, tarash, tarash. In darkness, you have incarnated over and over, carrying the weight of many lifetimes of pain and trauma. Lifetimes where you have lost your way. Lifetimes where you have had pain inflicted that is unimaginable. And yet, here you are, Molana Kayla Barashana Rayat Kurashanai. Anabolo Shalamara Tikorashai. Ladamana Kodole Malale de Banali, Shikamanja the Kodijamnadai. Onola Shanamara Kayla Bakayna Klasha. Waking up, remembering your power. Ana kola vale kaina bakaya shana khlit kunmalai onna dala shakra malakai ala malakai malakai ana kaila bata shikam male jolo shimlai onna khala palan jo badara shla alle khil malakai na balashal ana paila makhalia khalia balashal khala barale shana malakai ana khala pale shila malakai ana paila bata shikra chikabai ana kurashana khayet ka shahrashan bata shikrai Nushundaraya Salakana Hishabrai, and the Kishara Hoi, and the Krushanakaya, Rashamakaya Lamanaki, Rashalai, and no lake Rebraina Crush, and no Ration Mariala, Hina Krishna Kriya Karai, Una Klaya Hashamai. Nalakana Malay Shin no Rashai, und Krashai and Krashai, Ahana Hira Sharashara, und Klin Madakaya Labaraki Sharahi, Ora, in gold, Arashai, Mahish. Marit krashara bakayana krashara tisho krashai arash und krashaya takrana krashal barahim arahim malahim orash. You do not need to heal, for the wounds will always be there. You need only remember and awaken to the immensity of who you really are. There is nothing more than this. Malit kuna klat kulishna play, ana kula kachilot stamalakhlit brush, or kral malkhil blad klundler shmalay, Allah khura malakhaler shmalhay sramla, in the kulat kalunda chikalor smrak, shina klats barakajamaralizabay, unishilmada chikalam de los sholai, astapana chikalit krishna paray shikanish kurumlay, or rangla shayan barai say la makhay. Flesh. Allah. Once you remember your greatness, the veil will fall away. Being stuck is only an illusion. There is nothing stopping you right in this moment from accepting and integrating your power, remembering who you are, and fully unfolding. Let the glass ceiling above you be fully shattered, so that you may see clearly and have access to all areas of your soul's true power. Nalthis kola maratitosnole, ola khe roblashana khlaisai, ola halale balai na rosh ola malai oile malishmlai, ala khurang katichik haya shakrash. Ono shura shanakai, or an shura nakashkaramarai shakravistanai, Urshmaraya Rashlamahai Shakrashua, Allah, Allah, Allah. Noshe, Noshe, Noshe. Kanayaswaya. Remember, 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 remember. Machrana Sharistnai. Ora, ora, ora. And take a deep breath in and out. Slowly returning. But really holding that power, that immensity, that vastness of your soul's memory. Setting the intention for that memory to stay and integrate into you on the earth plane, and for that healing to have a residual effect across all dimensions and realms and all aspects of your soul. Couple of deep breaths and returning home with thanks and gratitude to the beings that have helped us today, from both the Akashic and the star realms. Okay, if anyone would like to give feedback or share anything, be great for the group. Feel free to put it in chat.
Hi Mel,
Hey,
it's Emma.
hi, Emma.
I'd like to share that when you started channeling the light language, I automatically opened my mouth and the sound came out like it was a tuning fork. It was really
Right.
high pitched, and
Amazing.
it was just kept on getting higher and higher and higher. And I just had these flashes of like Atlantean beings, like with staffs and like crystal staffs and druids and Stonehenge, And another one coming to me was like Egyptian Anubis, which is the god of death. He's got the wolf kind of face. And it was just like and a real big coughing fit right at the end. Like it just, yeah, it was just really powerful and incredible to connect back into those realms. And yeah, like
Wow.
something just went bing.
Amazing. Wow. I got massive full body
Yeah.
chills. Hang on. Oh my gosh. He's been driving me nuts trying to get in. That's amazing. Yeah, just was getting so much power from those words far out. Yeah, just incredible. It's pretty powerful stuff. Yeah, awesome. Anyone else? Love that.
I'll share.
So,
Okay, so I went back to Egypt. I have a connection of Egypt. Don't know what that's about, but there's something there. Anyway, we were all there. We were all holding hands, and we all had light beaming from our heads, trying to protect the outer realm. Anyway, then it came to me, and it's just like these exact words was, "I am a fucking goddess."
yeah.
Like those were the words, like, I'm a fucking goddess. And then when we started coming back, I woke, instantly sat up, and without any consciousness, I started writing.
Getting chills.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking. I was just literally pen to paper, and it's like it's not even my fucking handwriting, but I can heal with my energy. I'm here to lift vibration. I will help others rise. My presence will bring happiness that the world has forgotten. Yeah.
Wow. How's that feel?
There's no words.
Wow. Man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So much power.
Yeah.
I've got I've got to do another workshop. There's some other exercises that I want to do. Activating the
I've got all day. Let's just keep going.
So great. That's amazing. Yeah, that totally gave me the chills. I love that. Wow. Anyone else?
I kind of was split between the two. So Lemuria and Egypt. I've definitely had a ascension trigger in this lifetime from a twin flame experience, and he shared a life in Egypt. And so there was a bit of that, but then I jumped to the Lemurian kind of Stargate portal thing, and I could see it's almost like I was a channel. I was pulling in different like streams of light and drawing them down to the planet.
Wow.
And for some reason, I felt like the collapse in the darkness started in Atlantis, because I had some friends that I was like communicating with through telepathy, and she was telling me it's happening. And so I started like doing stuff, getting ready for it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of feedback on that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Really, really interesting. Yeah, the whole
I actually know the person in this lifetime as well. I've connected with her at Ascension Point when I met my twin flame. And like 4 of us, and we did a regression together. and we've seen lots of different like kind of timestamps.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about, you know, your family connections, I never felt the connection that I have with those 4 people, or our group of 4 that I had. Like that feels more like family to me than my own.
Yeah. And that's really common because, you know, oh God, yeah. Like, you know, when it came through, because, you know, it's channeled, like I'm just giving what I'm getting. And when it came through, you know, all the beings that collected together that made a pact basically to stay, to not escape through the portals and the stargates. They decided to stay, to give people a chance to reascend, and you know, it was a huge sacrifice, and there was a lot of them that decided to stay, and they're the ones in the pods, right? And so it's, you know, it's almost like you just land down and you're just planted around the planet into, you know, like foster families, which is why you often, you know, all these beings that made the pact that have been coming back thousands of times, you always feel like you were born into this really like totally alien family. Like you feel like the alien in the family, and you feel really like you really question. And apparently I used to say to my mum all the time, are you sure that I wasn't swapped? I mean, I was put in another room sometimes. Are you sure they couldn't have swapped me? Like she said, it was just this really bizarre thing all through my childhood of feeling like I was just plonked somehow into this family that, and I love them, but it was like I was just so different. Like the way my brain operated was different, and the way I thought was different, and you know, and I just didn't accept anything. And so, you know, I always felt like I thought differently from people. And you know, I've talked about this with some people where, like when I was at uni studying psychology and sociology, and you know, we'd be studying all these clinical trials, and everyone's all about the science and the clinical trials, and I was obsessed with the placebo. I was obsessed with what our brain was capable of doing, just with intention and commitment. And so I never fit in there at university either, because my brain was like completely out of the box to everyone else's. Things like multiple choice, like I was terrible at, because my brain did not operate in the way that lots of other people's brain worked. And I was never really interested in following the conventional paths. And so, you know, it just took me like until my 20s to find the other paths. But yeah, you know, and that's that real sense of being the black sheep, being the, you know, this odd one, or feeling implanted in your family. And you are, literally you are. You had to, like Superman, you know, you had to have a family to go to, because you still had to go through the birth process and the growing up process, but you had to be put somewhere. So until your pod could open, right? And that's more apparent now than ever before, because the pods are opening all over the world. So I love that, Alana. A vision of a group of children of different star races holding hands and dancing in circles, chasing each other and having fun in the green grass, lifting up and healing each other with our hands when we had a fall. Because we really, you know, had all that power. It was just normal. Everyone had it. There was no, you know, competitiveness, because it was simply accessible to everyone. So there was no need to hide anything, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, did anyone else want to share anything? Liddy?
Yeah, I had an interesting experience. So over the past 2 days, I struggled to stay awake during the meditation. This time I was awake. I saw myself basically flying through the universe, through layers of clouds, mainly pink and green. I believe I landed on Atlantis, but part of me didn't want to be there. It felt it wasn't the right time to explore. So I left very quickly. And I just continued to fly through what I believe was the universe. And it ended with a lot of purple and blue around.
Amazing. I love that. And so, you know, you're being sort of opened up and taken somewhere with your guides. So they're helping you out. And when you've been getting knocked out during the meditations, that is, so when they struggle to get into you consciously, because you know, you've got something that is so deep that you're trying to clear, or there's a part of your conscious mind that is struggling so hard to let go. So when they struggle to come in on the conscious, but your soul is wide open and ready, then they'll take you out, right? Because when you're out, when you're into a deep kind of, and I get this with clients on the table, sometimes they come in and they are zonked, they're out, they're completely KO, and the language pours out and the stuff pours out and the coding, and then all of a sudden it stops and they wake up, literally like that. You know, so you get taken out for them to do the really deep work, for them to implant the codes deeper when your conscious mind is getting in the way.
I guess I get more information when I'm sleeping.
Yeah. So
more receptive.
Yeah. So yeah, just so pay attention, you know, write your dreams down. And actually what I should do is a workshop on dream analysis, because I've got a really good method for dream analysis. That's great.
Oh my God, I dream so much.
Oh yeah, okay, I'll put that out next.
Yeah. Sometimes the other day, it was the craziest, wildest adventure. It was so many different things in my dream, but I couldn't remember a damn thing when I woke up.
So I'll do a dream workshop. So what I want you to start doing then is putting a book next to your bed and setting an intention before you go to sleep to remember your dreams and any conscious astral work, and then write that next to you. Like as soon as you wake up, before you do anything else, you grab a pen and you write any fragments you remember in the book, and you will start to remember more and more and more. Okay, they'll get stronger and more vivid every day. And then bring that book to the workshop and we will do dream analysis work. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, it's been amazing. So I'm just going to stop the recording now.